Hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Is there some sound? Hello, let me know. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, that sounds great. So, quick setup of the chat, and that's it. Welcome back to the stream, little ones. Today we wanted to do quite some stuff, but we won't do that because I'm super tired from work from yesterday and today. But still we will do some small things, and also we will fix something because someone wrote a comment. I'm always interacting with you guys, and someone mentioned, hey, it's quite tough to follow what you are doing because the titles of the streams, they are always the same, which is correct. I never changed them. I actually forgot that there is even a stream title which is then used for these videos. So first of all, we will fix the stream titles. Second of all, I'm not sure, but can you add streams to a playlist? It seems like. So we will also make a playlist for them and bundle them together. So that's the first thing that we are going to today. So we have this platformer game development from scratch, which is already quite long. So I would maybe say platformer to make it clear, 2D-Platformer development. LibGDX, then everyone knows already what we are doing, Kotlin, and then it's day one. And what did we do on day one? I don't remember. I think it was just some basic project setup and tiled integration. Yeah. So basic project setup and tiled integration. And I will also post a link to the project in the video description below, because why not? If anyone is ever reading that, then he can GitHub link to project. Okay, so then let's save that one. Then what was on the next day? Did I even... That's a good question. Did I open it up now in order? So is that really day one? I think so. But that is hopefully the last day. Yes, I think it's opened in the correct order. We will see that then later on. Then day two. What did we do on day two? We did something. We did add profiling and collision objects and the tiled map renderer optimization. Okay, so the important part is collision bodies. Zack, 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 zack. Save. Then day three. What did we do on day three? We did spawn player, integrate box 2D for player character. So let's name the tiled plus box 2D integration. Let's call it like that. That was day three. Then we had day four. Day four, we did replace boxes, render player graphic, player control optimization. So this was more like sprite rendering. That was on day four. Of course, there's always some other things as well, but I want to write down the most important thing that happened on a specific day. Then we are on day 5, where we did the jumping, some test writing, and GitHub automation. So let's call that jumping plus GitHub workflows. Or just workflow. That was day 5. And the last one is day 6, which is animation, state management, camera system. Okay, so that's what we just call animation plus camera. Okay. So now they should all have interesting titles. They are all public. And if I refresh that now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. Then let's also add them to a playlist. New playlist. And we call it 2D-Platformer. 2D-Platformer. Is it with double T or just one T? How do you actually write platformer? Platformer. I think it's just one T. It's just one T, but I always wrote it with 2 T's. So I need to fix that typo as well. 2D-Platformer in LibGDX, Kotlin from scratch. And also here, we will post the link to the GitHub project. And it's public. And let's create it. And great stuff. And let's save it. So we should now have a playlist here. 2D-Platformer in LibGDX Kotlin from scratch. And we should have here some videos. And how are they sorted? Seems like they are randomly sorted. But published, newest first, oldest first. Let's do it like this. So now it's day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. So now that is also ordered correctly. And let me fix that. So it's actually just one T. It's just the platform and not platform. Let me quickly fix that as well. And then we are good to go. So refresh once more. Now the typo is fixed. And now I forgot who wrote the comment, but whoever that guy was, I hope he's now very, very happy. We could, of course, also do some thumbnails, but it's just me. And it is some additional work to make thumbnails happen. So if you want to work for me, send me a request and make something happen, then I will gladly add that to my channel. But if it's just me, we have to live without thumbnails for now. Good. That was a tiny little thing. Actually, the stream title is also not correct, but I'm not sure if I can fix that so easily. I don't think I can. I will fix it the next time, because there's also this double T, which is not correct. But we will fix that the next time. What we want to do today is that I actually want to load this game property stuff that we can dynamically enable and disable certain systems, and also maybe extract some other properties to our game in a specific file. Like, I don't know, for example, music volume, sound volume, some other information that might influence your game, and also that might help with some debugging issues on client side. So that's the first thing that we are going to start. That one tiny little bit here with the player optimization, where we parse something in addition, we will move that to the beginning of the next day. That should be something small, but it's still a little bit to think through for me, and today I just want to do something easy. My brain is not at 100% power efficiency. So let's try this load property stuff. I want to ignore this update. I looked a little bit how I did that in a previous game, because there was also reading out some property file. And what we can actually do is use a LibGDX helper class. But before we do that, we need to create a file. And for that, we just create a file in our assets folder and call it, for example, game properties, which could be modified then by the client in the end. Hello, Chobi Game Dev Journey. Yes. I actually made a poll if we should do a streaming project in Corgi, or however you pronounce that, this Kotlin game engine, or LibGDX or Godot or whatever. And there were actually quite a few people interested in Corgi. Do you say Corgi? Corga? I don't know how to pronounce it. Nice to see you here as well. Also, before I start or continue with the stuff here, I remember from the guy who is maintaining the Corgi library that, or I will call it Kotlin game engine, that he asked me if what ways I see that Flex can maybe support the WA, so the WebAssembly backend, and he just highlighted me in a thread that I cannot find anymore. So I don't know if that issue got closed or what happened to it. I anyway cannot find it. And back then I had actually almost no idea what WebAssembly is. And he asked something about, can we convert things to a byte array and get the information back out of it? So I gave some idea. But I think that was actually completely stupid and bad, because theoretically, since we have a Kotlin multi-platform project, we could add the WebAssembly platform or backend or whatever that is called. And I tried that quickly out in the current master branch. So there is somewhere in the Gradle file, there are I think it starts with Kotlin, and then you need to specify what kind of backends, like if you have ASM64, and if you have the JavaScript support and whatever backends. And in there, you could actually write WebAssembly, and I think there was something in it. Was it Node.js? I cannot remember, but another method. And theoretically, that should be it, that the Flex library then also compiles to WebAssembly and could be used there as well. But I did not get that to work, so there was a problem then in the compilation. And I thought that it's maybe some issue, since it's, I think, early still for this WebAssembly backend. And I think they want to improve it with Kotlin 2.0, if I remember correctly. So I try to wait, or want to wait for Kotlin 2.0, and then try to add this platform and backend as well, so that the guy can use it then there. If you know where this thread was about with adding Flex to the WebAssembly stuff, then let me know, because I cannot find it anymore. I tried to find the functionality in GitHub, that maybe I see the threads where I got mentioned with the @ symbol, but I couldn't find that anymore. Anyway, game properties. What we want to do today is we want to enable and disable this physics render system and also the profiling system. And to keep it very simple, I would say we just simply call it debug physics. And that is, for example, set to true, and also enable profiling. And that is, for example, also set to true. So that's a very simple property file. Usually it's key value pairs with key equals value. And then there is a LibGDX utility function. Was it called properties utils? And then load. Yeah, and then we could pass in here our property map. And we need to pass in a reader. And the reader was maybe a file. Isn't it like get file handle. Not sure. And then some path. And seems like a file type. Something like that, but I need to look that up once more. Anyway, with this utility class, there somehow it parses then this property file into a map with key is a string, which makes sense. And value is also a string, which makes also sense because we are just writing here text, but actually we then parse those stuff here into the objects that we need. So that, for example, will be a Boolean. I'm not into this WebAssembly topic over there in Korge. I saw some guys working on the backend implementation. Yeah, so I will just maybe make an issue then when it's finished. But again, as I mentioned before, I think I need to wait for Kotlin 2.0 because there was a problem, at least in, not sure if it was with compiling or with some of the tests that they simply did not work. Maybe some additional setup is necessary with WebAssembly stuff at the moment, but I'm also not an expert there. I just saw that that is available in Kotlin multi-platform, and theoretically you should be able to simply enable it like I showed it before. But yeah, let's wait for Kotlin 2.0. That should, from what I read, make it easier. And hopefully then also makes it very easy to edit to Flex. Good, so property utility, where did I use that? I remember that I for sure had a project where I read that. Was it the little game with the dino stuff? Let me quickly check, because then we don't need to ask Google or find the correct piece of information somewhere. Was it in here? Yes, so there was a game property file. So I assume that there was a call to property utilities. And I called that dot reader and then use the reader and do something. That looks great because it's a simple one-liner. So what do we do here? We get the access to the file handle, which is in the assets folder, and it's called game properties. So that's the file that we get from the file handle. It seems like we can get a reader, and use is like, I guess reader is in the background, maybe an input stream or whatever. And I could imagine that this is then an auto-closable, which means that it's a resource that needs to be closed properly. And in Java, it would be this try with resource stuff. And in Kotlin, we have this use extension function, as you can see here, which works on a closable object and simply executes then this block code. And at the end of this block code, it calls then the close method. So we can do it like that. And then finally, we get here a properties map. And I'm thinking now, I think for simplicity, because these properties should be accessed everywhere and we just need them once, and I don't want to pass them all the time to every screen. I think it's simpler if we just make a global static map for that and then load it into this map, that we can access it in a very simple way everywhere. Unfortunately, I need to go now. Kids are waiting with dinner. Okay, then have fun. Enjoy your evening. I will come back. Nice. Keep it up. By the way, I'm streaming over there on Twitch. Korge with Flex. Ah, okay. That's also interesting. I wasn't on Twitch for quite some time, but I will check it out because usually in the evening when I'm in bed, I'm watching some streams or YouTube videos. Then I will have a look. Have a nice dinner. Bye-bye. So what we said here, we need to pass a map to it, which will be our, let's call it game properties. And that one is an object map. So that is some LibGDX map implementation. And in my opinion, they did unfortunately a little bit of a bad job with implementing their own collections. So just to explain it a little bit, so LibGDX has a lot of collections themselves. So they have an array implementation, they have a map implementation, I think a tree implementation. Then they have for all the primitive types separate collections. And the goal of these collections is that they reduce the garbage collection as much as possible and also reduce the auto boxing, if I remember correctly. So to cast, for example, not cast, but to box the primitive integer to the object integer in Java. So to reduce that and make them as fast as possible and, as mentioned, use as less of the garbage collection as possible. However, I think, first of all, that with the improvements of the garbage collection over the last few years, that most likely you won't really notice a big difference if you use the standard collections from Kotlin standard library, for example, or the LibGDX collections. That is what I think. Second of all, unfortunately, with all their collections, they never implemented the official interfaces. So I think this one is iterable, and okay, that one is from the Java language package, but a map should actually implement also the map interface from, can we find that somewhere? Map.java. Yes. So it should, for example, is map an interface? I think so. So from the Java util package, there would be a map interface, and that has a specific set of functions, like is empty, size, other things. Same goes for lists and arrays and so on. And unfortunately, in LibGDX, all their collections don't implement those standard interfaces. They have usually some of the methods available, like for example, is empty is available and other things, but maybe not all of them. And that also makes it quite difficult to also extend or make an extension function for it, because LibGDX, which we are using, which adds all these nice Kotlin extensions, that library cannot easily just make an extension function for a LibGDX map, because for example, if you want to have the isEmpty function available in Kotlin style for that map collections, it would need to get duplicated many times. So there are, 6 different map collections. Then there are maybe 3 or 4 array implementations, maybe custom sets and lists, and you would need to duplicate all the different methods, which is a pain in the ass, and that's why it's not available. And in my opinion, that's a little bit of a design flaw in the library, that unfortunately they don't implement these standard interfaces. Anyway, what we can now do is pass this global map in here. Also, one thing that I don't like here a lot. So the object map is a mutable map, obviously, which means now our map in here is a mutable map, and which is also not so great, because that would also mean we could add here some properties to the map which are not existing. I usually prefer the immutable stuff. But anyway, we have now our game properties available. And the only thing that we need to do now is that in here we check something. So if game properties get, and I hope there's just a functionality to get the string out of it. Could we optimize that? We could. And maybe we should. I'm thinking now. I would say so. We will optimize that a little bit. So do we want to have extension functions for an object map string, or do we simply convert that map to a normal map, let's say in Kotlin? Not sure. I think for now we will just go with some extension functions. So let's put that in the utility package here, that we also that we already have box2d stuff, flex utility stuff, some math stuff, and let's also call that here libgdx collections, or just, let's call it collection. Utils. I don't like the name utils at the end. Might need to change that at some point. Anyway, we want to have what do we want to have? I would say we want to have an operator function. Get. No, it's like this. So get. And that one takes a key, which is a string. And also a default value of type T. And that should return something of type T. And this T is a reified type T. Is that possible? Only type parameters of inline. And okay, can we make that inline? Yes, we can. So what we want to do here is then basically this get and default value. No, that is our method here. So we want to have this one. Maybe just this one. So we have the get call. We get the key, which is the value. And that is the string value. Yes, that's a string value. That is what we get from the original map. And then I would say if the string value is null, then we return our default value. And otherwise, if the string value is not null, then return, and then we need to cast it somehow. Default value. Oh, I think, can we just do that? I think that's not possible, right? Yes. How can we do that? So T, then class, and then so we could do it like that, but this is some Java reflection stuff, which I don't like a lot. How did I do that? Let's check one thing. So that this is just a small thing. It's not really important to what we're trying to achieve, but I just want to see if there is a nice way to do it. And I remember that in the tiled package, there should be something for map properties. Oh, that's not it. Where is it? Maybe map object. This one here. So property or null. So that one, or property with default value. That one calls, I will zoom in a little bit. This one here calls the properties method with the key, the default value, and the Java class. Where do we have that? So, there should be, I don't see it. There should be an operator get. Or is this some... Or is this actually a basic method in the tiled map package of LibGDX? That could be the case. The other thing would be that they check here, so if this T is of a specific type. I don't know, let's try it like this. Shall we do that, really? We should also make a test for that. That would be actually something interesting. So let's really make a test for that. Since that is not a class, we need to do it manually. So we want to have, or can I somehow... normally it's Control-Shift-T, but since that one is not a class, it does not work. Anyway, so we make a file that we call collection utils test. And we want to move that to a different package, but we need to make that here visible in a better way. So we have then we need the util package, and then we can move the file in here. And finally, we can revert that back. If there is an easier way to do it, that let me know, because I at least don't know it. That is actually a wrong file. We need a Kotlin file, collection utils test. Okay, and that one requires a test function. Function tests get properties or something like this. And what we need a test map, which is an object map of type string. And that one has certain things. So let's call that int key. That would be a number. Then we have a Boolean key. That would be a Boolean. There we have true, false. Also for the number, we need to have a negative number. If that works, then we would also need floating point numbers, 1.1, minus 1.1, and finally just the normal string key with the value string, and that's it. And what we want now is something like the expected values that we want to have per key. So in the end, we want to have an assertion. So assert equals, for example, 1 when we get from this test map the int key 1. It should be most likely get or default, so we should rename that. And then it would be int key and the number 1. Does that work? Test map get. Yes. Okay, we don't have this function yet, this extension function, but that is what we want. And the expected value is actually 1. So first of all, we need to rename this one here. So that one is not an operator function, it's just a normal function, and it's called get or default. So now that one should already compile. What else do we want? So when the int key is 2, we expect that we get the number back -1. When we have a float key 1 and float key 2, then we want to get here 1.1 minus 1.1 and minus 1.1. Okay. I made here a mistake, so I deleted one of the test cases. So that was the int key 2. Here we had float key 1. Here we had float key 2. Then we have the Boolean key 1. I need to check that. So not sure that all the test cases here are currently correct or verified in a good way. But I just want to write down what I want to test. So what are the different possibilities that I would see? And the last one is with our string key, and there we expect the string, and that one should be something. And finally, if we don't have a specific key, like for example, missing key, that one should then return. What should it return? Most likely null, maybe. I don't like null, but might be null. And here, no, because here it should return the default value. So in such a case, we should not get a null value, we should get the default value. So those are all the keys. Verify access of keys which are present. And the last one is verify access of key which is not present. So here actually it does not really matter. It just needs to be an integer that gets passed in here. Here it's a float. I don't have the test case for the second float, which was that one. So here we want to have the Boolean. So there a false case does not really make sense because we just want to detect. Yeah, it does make sense. If it then correctly parses the false value as well as a Boolean. So here we want to have false. Here we want to have true because we should get back here false and here we should get back true. Then here, let's make it float. And finally the string. And the last one is if we try to access a key which is not available. And let's see, I guess this is not working. For some of the test cases, it might work, but not for all of them. By the way, they're usually, most likely, you should split the test case up here a little bit. Maybe one test case to check the number parsing, one case to, oh, here's something broken. Then one test case for the floats, one for Boolean, one for string, one for a missing key value. So ideally, you should have multiple methods. But I just, as a personal preference, if it is a very small function that I'm testing with a very small amount of things to do, then I usually prefer to just have it in one method. Makes it a little bit easier and faster to write down. So what did not work? In line, which line did not work? Do we somehow see that here? It tells me line 37, but line 37 does not exist at all. So cannot cast string to integer. So most likely the first method here did not work at all. So I will go back to the approach that I wanted to do before, which is more something like this. So when t.class is number or is integer, then we want to return integer. I actually, I think I never casted in Kotlin or created an integer out of a string. No, it's in Kotlin. It's way easier. I forgot about that. It's just toInt and that's it. So if class. If t, is it just t? Because t is already the type? No. It's not an expression. So t class is int.class, really? No. Just int? No. Huh? What is that one? That is a public companion object of int. No, that is not what I want. That is what I want. So when t class is of type int class, I don't know if you can write it down differently, but we will go with that approach. Then this one is simply to float. What else do we have? Then we had the string itself. By the way, here we need to write return. Then we can remove that one. Maybe that's the default case. It's the else case. I just want to have that as a because it does not know that this is of type T. Oh god, generics. Aren't you a bitch? So I thought it could be something simple as that. But of course I want the type safety. Wait. The as int. As T. Yes. Okay. So that will, I'm pretty sure that will work. Most likely we will get a warning. We don't get a warning. That's good. But that also means we should hopefully pass here some tests. By the way, also in JUnit 5, if I remember correctly, there would be do we also have that here, an asset all? Okay, we have that here as well, which is way better because then no matter which one of those tests here fails, it will still execute all of them and just tells you which ones are missing. Not quite sure yet how to call that. Let me first fix it like here. So we have for input string number format exception, but why? It's here at this line. So here it seems like it tries to parse it as a float. Why would it do that? Let me check. So our string key has the string in it. So let's make a breakpoint. Let's see. We are almost there. Always a little bit of a struggle for me trying to get the generics right, because it's slightly different if you do it in Java or TypeScript or Kotlin, also with the casting and everything and the reified type. And when you don't do that regularly, then you might struggle a little bit with that, like I did. Okay, why did the breakpoint also not get reached? What is going wrong? Shouldn't I be part of this method here? It doesn't seem like it. I don't get it. Let's make a breakpoint here. And then debug in here. Okay, for whatever reason, we never reached that specific breakpoint. Then one more time, let's go back. We know that all the tests above are currently passing. So we just want to debug this one. So we have the string value string, and the T class is... We don't see that. Why don't we see that? This function has a reified type parameter, and those can only be inline and compilation time, not called directly. So unfortunately, we don't see... and I see the mistake here. unfortunately, I don't have the people here today which are paying attention. So unfortunately, here we I need to do it like this. I called here to float, just a copy paste issue. That should be it now. Let's see. Not yet. Expected default value and the actual value was string. Yes, because I go in here with a valid key. I want to go in here with an invalid key. And now everything is passing. That's great. So now we can use this extension function wherever we want it to have. And it will give us a type safe value back, at least for the types that we are supporting, which is, yeah, I would say a little bit better than before. Also an interesting, not really a challenge, but interesting to see how I normally write tests and what you do. I always try to do, first of all, try to keep tests short, so they should not be super long. Also, ideally, they are even shorter than that one. That one is already a little bit long for my taste. Then I usually have a block at the beginning, which is the setup, then an empty line, then the methods that I want to call, and then at the end, another empty line, and then at the end, the assertions or the verifications. Since in that case, it's easier to combine the assertion with the method call, I combine it in here. But anyway, I want to try something out. So this assert all, which is from JUnit Jupyter API. Okay. And I could pass here a stream of something or a variable argument of things that should be executed. So is it like this? How is I could imagine that it is like this. So let's just try it out. So we will add here the opening bracket and here the closing bracket with the comma. And we move all of that inside the assert all stuff. The bracket here at the end we will remove. And now I'm wondering if that is first of all working. Yes. And what is happening if I do something stupid? For example, that one should now fail and that one should now fail. What kind of information do we get back? Multiple failures, 2 failures. Yes, that is expected. And we see here expected false but was true and expected str but was string. Okay, so seems like that's how you use this assert all. But anyway, that one is working great. Okay, so coming back to our game screen. Here we want to have now something get or defaults, and the key, most likely we want to have an enumeration for the different game properties because we will never be able to remember all of them. So let's call that game property key, which is an enum class. And there we have how, I already forgot how they were called. So let's take those two. We have one which is called debug physics. And the other one is called enable profiling. And we will make it like this. So debug physics and enable profiling. So that one takes a key, which is a string. Okay. And finally, now we can go back here and now we can do game property key debug physics. The default value is false. And here we want to have the key. So actually what we could do here even better, we could replace that key with our game property key and call here the key.key. Looks a little bit weird. Let's call it here game prop key. Okay, and now the tests are of course no longer compiling because we broke them with that little change. But yeah, the important part is that this one here should at least work. So enable profiling, which also by default is not enabled. And that should be it. So currently we have debug physics and profiling enabled. Okay, wait. First of all, let's quickly fix the test. So, haha. That cannot be tested anymore because we use now these fixed keys. Then I will even go one step further. And we just copy and paste that one here. We will then have two versions. One version which is the one that can be tested. Way easier for different scenarios. So that's the real method. And the other one here is above. And that one is simply calling the get or default function, and here it's using the game property key and passes the default value. So that way the test should still compile and work, and also our game screen should still compile and work. I like it. So now let's try it out. So we have here our launcher, and now we see the profiling here at the top, and we also see the physics debug stuff. Now let's try that out. Now let's change both of them to false. So now we don't see any profiling. Yes, and also no physics debug stuff. And now let's try the single one. So that should just enable the profiling, which it does. And that one here should enable the physics debug rendering, which also works. Good, good. Debug physics. Yeah, let's disable both for now. But that's already the first part for today. So we have here a file with an extension to this object map string stuff that LibGDX is using internally, and we want to simply reuse it since we are already using LibGDX, and we just have a simple extension function in Kotlin which allows us to get a value out of this map in a type-safe way, and we did that in here. Maybe that one can be written here a little bit better. I'm not sure. Maybe you can do it without this T::: class. Maybe you can do it in a better way, but I don't know how. And yeah, at least that one is working, as we have seen also in the tests. And that's the important part. Okay, then we have the game property file. We have this key enumeration so that we don't need to remember the different keys in this property file all the time. We have the game screen updated so that those two systems are now only created. So first of all, they are only created and also added to our world only if the properties are correctly set. So we can enable and disable them dynamically. That was the goal. And we also load this game properties here, where we also add now something which is more useful and which is, I think, a good use case actually for the game and makes more sense. Let's also do that. There is something which is called GDX app debug level or log level. Exactly, log level. And there we want to set something. So there is application dot, and then we can set log info, log none, log debug, and log error. Normally during the development, we want to have debug messages available. And those are basically just some numbers. So what we can do is that in our property file, we can define here the log level and say, for example, 3. So that one is we can have a comment here. So none is that one. Then we have debug. Then we have info. And we have error. Okay. Also maybe remove the log stuff. That is not really important. Also the semicolon can be replaced like this. And let's say log level, in our case, we want to have debug. So we set it to 3. And with that, we can go back to the application and make here. Let's read the properties as a first thing in our game. And afterwards, we can access it with game properties, get or default. And then we have a game property key for the log level. And the default value would be maybe info. If nothing is specified, then I think info is good to go. So that would be application.log level info or log info. That's the default thing. And otherwise, it's doing the one from our property file. So that is a more meaningful use case. The other one is not bad, but this one I think is a more realistic one that you really might want to have in a real game. Then let's also create this enum constant, and I think we wrote it like that. So just log level, and let's quickly verify that as well in our main class. Let's have let's have here a logger. And directly after that, we will log. Is there a log method? No, just debug. Log level is, and then gdx.app.log level. So we will make a debug message here, which we should see now. So debug, blah, 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 log level is 3. Okay. And if we set this now to, let's say we just want to have info level, then we should not see the debug line. Yes. Good. So that I think is also a good example. So that we can dynamically change also the log level without needing to recompile or change something in the code. Which is good. So let's commit all of that and let's call it add game properties support. Okay, so load game properties is actually done. That is good. Took a little bit longer than expected because I wanted to have this extension method for the object map class. But yeah, I think we did something cool and was nice to see also with the testing stuff and things like that. Hello Spalauni, map directly to a fully typed config object after loading the properties and you won't need the extension function and you can drop the enum. I thought so before for a short moment that I should just, my idea was that when we have here this object map, where do we have it at that point in time, that maybe I just pass that to a separate class and that class internally is then parsing the entire file and directly give access to the different properties. And I agree that would actually be a nicer way to do it. And let's actually, I like the idea because I had the same one before, but I didn't want to go that route. But we can make refactor game properties by creating an own class, pass object map to it, and parse it directly. That class contains val properties for the different properties in the file. Can we sneak that in somewhere? I think in here. Before we start with the enemy development, because that's most likely a difficult topic, we can refactor that a little bit. Good point. Good guy. Okay, then for today, the last thing that I want to do, which might not be perfect, but I want to add some music and also sound effects. So background music that can be configured in tiled, and also a sound effect when we are jumping. The problem is I did not look for assets here. So I usually go to itch.io. The other thing would be opengameart.org. Is that the correct address? Yes. I also thought that maybe nowadays there would maybe even be some AI websites where I can just enter, hey, give me a 2D-Platformer soundtrack or background music for a grassy hill tile map, and it then simply creates something and I can pick from it. Maybe that is available, I don't know, but would not be that far off at the time where we currently live in, because there is AI for everything. But yeah, most likely we will pick something from itch.io or OpenGameArt. But I need a short timeout because I need to take off my... What is the English word for pullover? Is it sweater? Or how do you call it in English? Sweater, yes. I will take off my sweater because it's way too hot. Be right back. And we will also go down, down, down with our desk. Welcome back, party people. So I never actually used something on itch.io from sound point of view. I think I always used OpenGameArt, or for one of my projects, there was a nice guy on Twitch who joined the chat, and he was a music artist. And he made me 2 or 3, was it 3 even, chiptune sounds for my game, which was really, really awesome. If I remember correctly, he was called Joseph. He was from America, and really nice guy. That was a nice project in general, and also I loved it that someone in the chat contributed to the outcome of the game, which was really nice. But anyway, on itch.io, if I remember correctly, you can say browse assets, and there was also, yeah, this one, albums and soundtracks. So there should be something. Then let's filter for... I usually like chip tunes, but not sure if you can select. Okay, you can select it. Yeah, maybe platformer since it's available. Short circuit sound. Okay, let's try out few of them. Of course, only the free ones. We will only pay if our game makes tons of money, then we will repay the guys who give us the assets for free. But otherwise, we are poor and don't give them anything. So let's try out this one, then Beat 'em Up soundtrack. That also sounds interesting. Maybe that one. Should that be a little bit like Mega Man? Let's see. Can I listen to it? No, I just see the assets. So, wow. I don't want to download everything. Shouldn't there be usually like something that you can try it out or listen to it before you download it? Let's try Happy Trail intro. Okay, that sounds like shit. So what else do we have? Off into the world. That also sounds like an opening song. Let's see if that one is a little bit better. Nah, I'm honest with you. That one does not impress me that much at the moment. Let's see what else is there that might sound interesting. Regrow. Nah, I don't know. So that's not the one that I'm looking for. What about this one? I'm not even sure if you can hear the sound. No. Okay. So that's definitely also not the sounds that we are looking for, but I like those one more. So they remind me really of the old times. What about this one? Video not available. That's already not a good starting point. Free 8-bit flavored BGM pack MP3. Yeah, let's give me the MP3. And let's see if there is something useful in it. Night of the Headless Riders. Oh god, that already sounds darkish. Nah, also not that good. Poppy Fields. That sounds funny. But I think that it's too annoying if you hear it all the time. So too annoying. No. No. We heard that, no. That one is okay, maybe? I think that one's okay. Okay, we will pick that one. We can anyway replace it later on, so it's not that important which one we pick, but it should be not something super bad. Or not bad. I don't want to insult those guys which are making those music sounds. They are great artists, of course, but what I mean with doesn't suit us or sounds like shit, that it's not what I have in mind when I think about our platformer game. Yeah, we will go with this one for now. So we just need one asset to implement our logic. We don't need more for that. We will have a new asset folder, which we call, let's call it audio. And in here we have, do I need to unpack it? Maybe. This one here, let's move it over there. And we also rename it to, what's the name of it? Let's say level or intro. Or tutorial. Let's call it tutorial. We will have a tutorial map where you learn the basics, and that will be the music file for it. Okay, that's already good. Then we need some sound effect for jumping, and then we can go back to the implementation part. So can I here somehow say I want to have sounds instead of music? Is this somehow possible? Albums and soundtracks. So I guess that one is not what I'm looking for. So maybe game assets. And is there something like sound effects? Yes, perfect. and 8-bit package. Yeah, maybe let's try this one. Can we also add again platformer? Put the, oh, and again also the free ones. And slime platformer animation. No, that's not a sound effect. RPG essentials sound effects. Maybe that one. Halftone sound effects. Let's try that one as well. And night and monster. Okay, let's listen to it and let's see if we can find a sound effect which sounds like jumping. Again, nothing where we can hear the different sound effects. That's again bad. You can download the zip from the website here. Download, blah, blah, blah. What do we have? Balloon, big egg, block break, blow, boss hit, bubble, cancel, confirm, hit the jump. Okay, let's listen to this jump stuff. Yeah. No. We want to have jump. Also, not what I have in mind for the game, but it's good enough to start with something. So let's put that one in here and let's call it jump. Okay, so what we need to go to our assets class. And we have new assets. We have one for music, because LibGDX distinguishes between music and sound effects. And for music, currently, we just have the tutorial. And that one is in the folder audio/tutorial.mp3. And for the sound effect, we have sound assets. Again, with a path. And there we start with the jump, where most likely every character has a different kind of jump sound. So maybe we could do here something like frog jump and somehow then get that specific sound when our character is jumping. But yeah, for now, let's keep it very simple. We don't need to go overboard today. Let's just call it jump, and that's a WAV file. LibGDX, from what I know, can support everything. So everything. It supports MP3, OGG, WAV. There would be other formats as well, but I think those are the three important ones that most likely you will also use. Then we load everything. So especially when it comes to music, we should be at least a little bit careful. We won't add anything special for today, so we are not actually careful. But what I want to point out is that when we go into the assets part of our music files here, you see that one is already 2 MB. 2 MB is not a lot nowadays, but you can imagine if you have, I don't know, hundreds of music files in your game and maybe even very long ones with 10 or 20 megabytes or whatever, most likely you don't want to load the entire music into your RAM and have then like 1 gigabyte of music files sitting there, which you are not using. That totally does not make sense. A better approach is to load the music file when it's necessary. And in my opinion, I could imagine that in worst case, you need 2 music files, because sometimes or certain games, they have a special effect that they are like fading out the current music and fading in the next music. So you would need access to 2 music resource files because they need to play at the same time. But that should be it. Most likely you never need 3 music files. So with music, I'm thinking maybe we really load and unload it on demand for now. But the sound effects, so they are usually small again. So it's just some kilobytes here. That one we will load all at once. Good side to generate sounds. I think, I'm sorry, but I think YouTube chat is not showing the comments which have a link. someone in the last stream also complains that I did not read his message, and his message contained a link, so it simply never popped up. I don't know how I can change that. Let me make that a little bit bigger. I cannot access here. Here I can access something. I can block you. Okay, that's specific settings for you. So I could block you. I can delete you. I can make you a moderator, but I don't see that I can somehow allow you to write a message with a link. Maybe try it without HTTP or www. Maybe something just like this. Maybe then it works. I would be interested in a site that creates sounds or music. Would be cool. Okay, so anyway, in load all here, we go to our sound assets, and then for every entry, again, we load it. And as mentioned in LibGDX, a sound is linked to a sound object. And here we load the path. Why don't I have access to the path? Whoa. I used the wrong braces, whatever they are called, for 8-bit and 16-bit sounds. I still don't see the link. I'm sorry. Try to write it in a way that it's not detected as a link and that I can still figure out how to paste it into the browser. Okay, so here we have all sound assets. That's good. Then I am thinking about how we want to implement sound and music playing. So I see two options. First of all, it could be an independent class, which I would then call maybe audio service, and that one is responsible for loading, unloading music file, and also playing sound files. Or we make it a system, and that system simply runs at the end of each frame. But I think in that specific case, I prefer a separate class. There would be another way, which I see in some tutorials, which is, for example, that let's imagine we have already a sound, and then we get a sound out from our asset manager, and there is a function which is called play. That would be the easiest one. We can use that also everywhere in our codes. It's also the same for music, so there's also a play method on the music. The downside is, and that could be a huge one, imagine that your game is a little bit more complex and there are a lot of things happening within a frame. And for example, an RPG would be for me a good example. Let me use my painting skills. Let's imagine we have our character, our hero here. And he has a fireball spell. So he will cast something over there, which is burning. And at some points, this fireball here is exploding. And it's hitting a lot of enemies. So there are maybe 5 of little goblins over there. Maybe something else. And in the end, our logic, of course, would be very simple. It will detect the fireball is exploding here. There are 5 enemies inside. So it will damage all those 5 enemies. And for every enemy that gets hit, we play a sound effect like this fireball hit effect, for example, if it has a special effect, if something gets hit. Physics way to get a little bit into it. The sound is nothing else than a wave. Whoa, I'm very bad at drawing. Let me draw. How can I draw a wave? Can I draw a wave? Like this. That would be, for example, the wave of our sound effect. Now, since we hit 5 enemies in the same frame, we would call the play method of that sound here 5 times, which makes, instead of having like that wave, which is like the volume, so how loud it would be, the sound effect, it would be 5 times that high because it's simply overlapping because we play it 5 times. So we will have wave like this. And basically the ears of our players would be bleeding and exploding. Bam, the headsets explode. And to avoid that, one approach to solve that is that you collect all these calls to what kind of sound effects you want to play in a frame. And at the end of the frame, you have some logic in place which detects, okay, those are the different sound effects that I want to play, and just play them once. You don't play them multiple times. The thing that I mentioned gets a little bit more tricky if this fireball, let's say, expands. So the explosion expands a little bit, and maybe at frame 10, that enemy gets hit. At frame 20, that enemy gets hit. Frame 30, that enemy gets hit. Then we have a similar problem again. So still the same sound gets played multiple times, but with a little bit of a delay. So it's in very old games, you might notice that from time to time that the same sound is then played multiple times, but with a very short delay in between them. Of course, that could also be fixed in this audio service that we are going to implement, that when a specific file gets played, then it cannot be played again for a specific amount of time. So we could do something like that, but we keep it for now in a simple way. So we will just have the simple approach. So at the end of the frame, we know what kind of sound effects we want to play, and we just play them. So that is the approach that we choose for this game. And as mentioned, we will have a separate class for that. I will also make it in a separate package in case we need something in addition. And let's call it an audio service. This service needs access to the assets class, and it needs to have several functions. So one of them would be a place method which takes a sound asset and then it plays the sound asset. And here again, what I mentioned before, we will add now some queuing mechanism. So we will have a sound queue, which is a mutable map, I would say, where the key is the sound assets. Do we even need that? I think we just need a set. So a mutable set of sound asset. I think that's everything that we need. Okay. And when this play method here gets called, then simply we add it to our sound queue. Does plus also work? What is the difference between plus and plus assign? Returns a set containing all elements of the original set. Aha, so that one creates a new one, and the plus assign, that one reuses the existing one. Okay, then maybe we also did something not the official way with our minus operator that we use somewhere. But yeah, let's come back to that in a moment. Let's not get distracted with what we are trying to achieve. So this is everything, and also our audio service needs to get updated. What would be cool, I think we don't need it for now, but what would be cool normally in an update method which gets called in every frame, we could pass in the delta time. And with that, we could also make a play method which takes in, for example, a delay of the sound effect, that a specific sound effect gets played after a second or 2 seconds, which could be useful if we developing like a event condition action system, so some triggers where you have some cutscenes in your game and certain things are happening and you want to play a specific effect then after a certain delay. So that could be useful, but for now we don't need it. So we just have this update call, and that will be at the end of a frame. And what we do in here is simply we iterate over our entire sound queue where we get the sound asset. Then for every sound asset, we get it from our asset manager, where we don't have a method for it yet. So we have a map asset, we have here. Okay, let's fix that now. I guess it should be minus equal, or how is that operator called? That operator is plus assign. Then I guess minus assign. That would be the correct one to remove an element but keep the list. Okay, so since it's exactly there, we will rename that to, or make it a minus assign. And our code will break somewhere and then we fix it. Okay, so that's the tiny little fix here. Then let's make here another one. So we need to access a sound asset, which returns a sound. And we also need the same for music asset, which returns music. Which brings us back to the service. So there we can then get the sound effect, and then we want to play it. Yes, we want to play it. Also, our service needs something which is sound volume, which is a float, and by default it's 100%, and also a music volume, which is also a float and also by default 100%. And that one we can pass to our sound asset. Currently, we don't have a user interface to control the volume, but that will be added later on in the main menu. And to just have that available, it's part of the audio service. We have those two properties to control then the volume of sound effects and of music. And at the end of all of that, we want to clear the sound queue. And that's it for the sound stuff, I would say. There would be also one method which should be called stop, which basically stops the music and the sound effects, and another one which is called resume, which starts then playing of all of that. If we finish that in time, we might want to add that, or we will add that, but let's see. Let's first implement also the music method. So there we pass a music asset to it. And here it's now a little bit different. So first of all, we need to remember the current music, which is a music which can be null. So if the current music does exist, then we want to do something. So we want to unload it from our asset manager. We need to unload the asset and not the file itself. Yes. Okay, so I think we need both. We need current music and current music asset. Yes. Most likely I want to have them together and not separately, because otherwise I need to always have here two separate null checks, which I don't like. So we will make here a data class. Let's call that current music, which is the music itself and also the asset to which it belongs. So that way we have here that little object here. Okay, so in here we remove then the asset, which also still does not work. I don't know why, but let's see in a moment. And also we want to stop playing the current music itself. Okay, so let's call it current music. Maybe we should call it music resource or something. I think that's a better name for that one here. Variable name, blah, 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 current music resource. Yes, also rename that. Didn't it ask me to rename it? Okay, so music resource and current music resource. I think those are, so that's a good name. So we have, if there is a current music resource, then we will stop playing it and we want to unload it from the asset manager. That one does not work because, we only had that for the map, but we also need it now for the music assets. Okay, then the current music will be stopped and we want to play a new one. So what we need to do is our current music resource is a new music resource. The music itself is from our assets, the music asset, and we also remember the asset that we are playing. And finally, we want to play that one. Okay, then let's do it differently because I don't want to have here another null check. So that one we just call music. And here we have play, and there is also a set or just a volume, and that one would be equal to the music volume that we have. Okay, so whenever we play a music file, we check, is there currently something playing? Then we stop it. Oh, there could be one special case actually, where if current music resource asset is equal to the music asset that we are already playing, then, I mean, that depends on your game. But in my case, if I, for example, I call play music 1 and then I call play music 1 again, I don't want that the music starts from the beginning. I actually just want that it continues. So there should be no music swapping in that case, and just continue the current music file. So here that would be if music is already playing, do nothing. So nothing needs to happen. Then here, stop current music if there is any. That's it. And here, play new music. That one does not work because the music asset is not loaded. So we will need something like load. Don't we have that for the map asset or no, we are actually loading all the maps. Yeah, okay. For music, I want to have that a little bit different. So we will load the asset. Should it be then plus equal? I would say so. So create a member function plus assign with a music asset. And that one is then loading the asset, which is of type music, and call this finish loading. And it's not asset, it's asset path. So it's like this. And let's move that up here. And also before the minus stuff, maybe here below the loading, that we can load music on demand. So let's quickly check if we are not loading here maybe music too much or too many times. So imagine we don't have any music yet. So we throw in here a new one. So that one here is not true because current music is null. And that one is also not happening because it's null. So we are loading the music. We are getting the music out of it. And finally, we are playing it and also remembering it for the future. Okay, then we want to play the same music again. We would abort here and not load it again. Then we would play a different music. So we would here stop the music. We would unload it from the asset manager. And below here, we would load the new music, get it and play it. I think that sounds good. I think that should be correct. Goody good. Then, with this audio service now available, the only thing that we need to do is we need to create an instance for it. Audio service. And I think we can, no, we cannot directly create it because it needs access to the assets and the assets need to be loaded lazily. So we also need to here load the audio service lazily. And for now, we have here the assets. We have the sound volume, which could be read from our game properties. Would be an option, or in the future we might have a preference file where we save and load such things. So for now we don't pass anything, we just have here 100%. And that's it. And the important thing is that in our render method, so after the screen gets rendered, I think it does, we could also call it before, but I do it afterwards. We call this update method. Okay. And with that in mind, or with that now available, we could now try to play something. What we need is, we need an audio service in our loading screen. Because we also, so first of all, in the loading screen, we could then, that was the minus assigned refactoring issue. So for in the loading screen, we could, of course, already play some music if we want. But the important one is we need to pass then this service to other screens as well. Like, for example, our game screen. In here, let's make that separate lines. And let's inject the audio service that systems can use it. And currently we have something. No. Aha. We solved that differently. I have now an idea. Because what I want to do, and let me quickly open tiled here. When we are in a map, so for example in our test map, then I want to have a property in this map, which we call, which is a file reference, and that one we call, for example, music file. And this one goes to our assets folder. and goes to, for example, to the tutorial MP3. Okay. So we have this information now in our map. And whenever we are doing a map change, then we want to change the background music. So we can achieve that in a way that our audio service is a game event listener. And then it can simply listen on an event. And if or when this event is a map change event, then we know the tiled map. We can get a property out of it, or null if it's not specified. The property is called music file. And it's of course a file actually in tiled, but most likely we just retrieve it as a string, I could imagine. And in here, let's make a breakpoint and see what kind of information we get here. But in order for that to work, what we need to do is that our audio service should get registered to the how did we call that? Game event something? Game event dispatcher. I'm thinking now if we do that maybe in the constructor directly. I mean, theoretically, the audio service could be an object because we just need one instance of it. That might make things even easier. And I am voting for it. Hello, object. No, it's not an object because it needs stuff in order to work. Haha. It cannot be an object. Yeah, then I vote against whatever I just said and we keep it as a class. And then I would say in the constructor, we have the game event dispatcher. And there we register the audio service. Could be tricky or maybe not what we want, but I think in that simple game, it is what we want. The alternative would be wherever you create an audio service, you register it, and then when you don't want to react to certain events, you unregister it, but to not forget that whenever you create an instance, we will do it here in the constructor. Okay, what did we do? Yes, we want to debug now our game and hopefully end up in the breakpoint below. No, we don't do that because there's already a cast issue. What? Couldn't load asset maps test TMX. Wrong type given for property music file. Given file and supported is string boolean int. Whoa, LibGDX does not support file properties? Really? Base TMX map loader. Yeah, look at that. It only supports int, float, boolean, and color. Otherwise, it throws an exception. Ay. Okay. Not nice, to be honest, but also not a very big issue because we can, of course, just create a string out of it. And it was audio tutorial.mp3. I think that was the name of it. Yes. Yeah. We could, of course, help the LibGDX guys and make a pull request for that. I did that once for a specific functionality, and it took forever for them to review it and merge it. So I'm not very motivated to contribute to the LibGDX project, unfortunately. So we will just work with whatever we have. Good, so that issue is gone. Now we have another one. What is the next one? Something with our sound effect. Couldn't load dependency of asset jump.wave. Did we forget to pass the audio? Yes, we forgot that audio. It's in this subfolder or in this folder. It's in audio. And now we should get, okay, we still don't get to the breakpoint because error reading wave file. Wave file must have 16 bits per sample. Screw you. We simply convert it. So it seems like this wave file needs to be in a special format. I don't know how we can easily convert that. So I try something with my free video editor that I use. No, I don't want to load the newest version now. Let's create a new project. I don't care. Then let's drag and drop this file in here. And can I now just export the audio? Is that possible? MP4, AV, those are all video formats. Windows media format, MPG. That's bad. Can VLC convert into a different file format? I don't know. Let's Google. Convert wave to MP3. There's Audacity, I think, is a good program for that, right? Audacity. I remember I used that one in the past. Is that still free and everything? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, let's just download it. I think that is a very cheap software to convert your audio files in whatever format you need. Yeah, okay. Just download it. Why am I now on a completely different website? What the hell? Just give me the download link to Audacity. What is that bullshit? Why do I get linked to random pages with tons of advertisements? So Audacity version something. Start download. Yeah. Free download of Audacity. Below there, sneaky little bitches. They wanted to link me to that garbage page and do something. Why is that setup called setup something? Why is everything not very professional with that software? Why is it not called Audacity software? Yeah, it seems like this software is not trustworthy anymore. Let's get rid of it. Weird. I remember that one was a good software back then, but seems like this is now completely garbage. Let's convert it here so you can have my jump sound. You get my jump sound effect, and I want to have an MP3 in. The quality doesn't really matter. Most likely this sound file anyway gets changed in the final game. So now we have an MP3. Yes. Now let's bring that in again. And let's remove the WAV file. I cannot remove it. Then let's rename that one to just jump. Then this is an MP3 file. Then here maybe tiled. Ah, no, it's open in the VLC player. Now I should be able to delete it. No. Cannot delete, blah, blah, blah. Maybe, because I dragged it into this editor. I think now we can delete it. Yes. Okay, so now we should still not get to the breakpoint. Screw you. Asset not loaded. Which one? Oh, here we had a debug line. Now we hopefully get to the breakpoint. Yes. At least to some breakpoint. That is not what we want. That's the one that we want. Okay, so here we get the music file, which is audio tutorial MP3. Okay, and that could be null if it's not specified in the map, but if it is specified, then we simply want to get the music asset. I'm just thinking now, would it then maybe even be better to just specify the music asset name in the tiled editor? Because I think that's anyway better, because then in the background we can change the real file to whatever we want, but the enumeration name will not change. So we adapt this code now. We will have this one here. That's the benefit, because we are writing everything for ourselves, so we can adjust everything to our workflow. So that one will be called music asset, and the value is tutorial, which brings us to our service. So there we will have the music asset. And if that one is not null, then we load it. And we also just call the play method. And that should be it. So theoretically, we should have background music. I don't hear anything. I think there is no background music. Also, we should, especially to such classes, we should add a logger, which also helps to identify certain issues. So here we will log a debug message, play music assets, and up here we have debug play sound something. Okay, what is the problem with that one here? Let's debug it, because I think we should end up in here. We don't end up in here. That's interesting. Music asset. How did we call it? I did not save the map. Okay. Yeah. Now everything looks better. Okay. Ta-da! Okay, great stuff. That's really amazing. We will place the property for audio and sound volume in here, because it makes it easy for me to adjust, and I need it. For me, it's way too loud. I don't know how loud it is in the stream, but for me, here it's way too loud. So sound volume most likely is 50%, and music volume is most likely also 50%. And let me check something. What did we want to do today? Background music and effect for jumping. So that one we will have in a moment. Didn't I want to do something else, I said, if we have enough time? Because what I'm tend to do, we will refactor the game properties once more. We will now, since we need it again now, I want to have it in a nice way. And do the refactoring suggestion from the guy before. So let's do that and let's call it, I don't know, let's put it inside another package. Is that even a package? No, let's move it outside here and we call it game properties. Yeah, that is a class. Is it a class? Yes, it is a class. And it takes the properties, which is object map of string, and it does something with it. And now we can have it in a really nice way, because now we just get all of that and make that now private val something. Not this line here. Then this one is a float. Then music volume is a float. Debug physics is a boolean. Enable profiling is a boolean. And log level is an integer. With that, we also don't need the game property key anymore and other things as well. But let's do it step by step. So should we do that internally in our class maybe? No, what I don't want that in the constructor of the class we are like reading a file and everything, because that makes it very difficult to test. If we would test that class, I think that's not a good design. Also, I don't want to make like a load method to this game property class, because if everything gets loaded in a delayed way, then I cannot make those constants, so that would need to be all variables, because I need to initialize them in a later way. So that's why I want to keep it actually like this. And what is that one? That is just loading a map. Yes. Okay, that one is just loading a map. Let's refactor that a little bit. So here we don't have an object map. We have here oh, wait, I also don't have global access to that then anymore. Or should we keep it simple and make it a little bit dirty? Maybe here it really just makes sense. So ideally, this is just an object. An object does not have, cannot have arguments, which makes sense. And of course, all of that stuff would need to be a variable again. So here we would have more like an init function. And that one is doing something. And all of these things here would be variables, where we could have at least then some default values in here already. Okay. We also don't need that anymore because the type is clear from what we assigned to it on the right side. What do you mean with mapper function, Spalauni? So maybe something like that. They need to be accessed from the outside, but we need private setters. So it's most likely something like this. Not 100% happy with it, but let's roll with that for now. And in this init function, there we now have that stuff in here. We don't need the game property companion object thingy because our game properties is now an object, which is just called game properties like this. And there, here we would just access then the log level. So something like that. So the code, when we access something, is a lot more beautiful. Why does it need to be globally accessible? I would do a data class and pass it around, and it would be easier to test. Yeah. Yeah. Is it though? Because those properties, we would need to pass it to the audio service for the volume, and we need to pass it to the game screen that he can do something. Let me think. Do we roll with the data class or with the object? I do agree data class is... Yeah, because that one is already ugly, right? We don't want that. We for sure want to have just values. Let's be honest. Okay, let's make it a data class. You convinced me. So what we get in here is our properties. Properties, which is an object map of string. And we do something with it. What is the problem here? Not a data, just a class. Yeah, it's just a class. Data class anyway is just overriding toString and then some other things which we don't really care. Then this is not a function in it, it's just a constructor. And in here we are now doing something. So first of all, I have some codes stored somewhere, which I need later on. In here we go, or I think we can just do it like this. So sound volume is equal to properties. And now we can maybe take over our utility method from here. Just this one, because the game property key, we don't need that anymore. That can be a private, I would say a private inline function. We need to rewrite our tests then completely, but they will be amazing. And what comes out of that, it's just, wow, it's then time to go to sleep because it's so incredibly beautiful what we are going to achieve with that. Okay, so we have here sound volume and default value is 1. Then we have a music volume where the default value is also 1. Then we have debug physics where the default value is false. Then we have enable profiling with the default value false. And finally, we have log level with this one here, application log level info. Yeah, then all of that can become a val again. And now we just specify here the types once more. I have something already in mind what we can do with that. Use a static function for the mapping from map to data class, then you can write the fields into the data class constructor. Ah, I like it. I like the ideas that you are giving me. So we will have something like object map string to game properties, and that one returns game properties, and it's then simply calling that maybe needs to be then implemented, but you are correct. So we can make it like this. Then this stuff might need to be moved up here. What did I do here? Not sure. I'm copy pasting too much. So we don't need the constructor anymore. Here we need the comma. Yeah. Then this one is also gone. And we need this function here still. But we can write it like this, right? Game properties, and then just return an instance where we have it written like this. And for properties, we just need to remove properties. And here again, we have the comma stuff. Okay, I'm doing crazy things and not talking full sentences anymore because I'm fully focused. So let me explain. So we have an object map string, and we want to convert it to game properties, which is a data class where we have then type safe accessors for the different properties in our game. And that one simply creates an instance and reads then the different properties from the object map. Yeah, I want to have the data class at the beginning, then the utility methods, and then this one here. Okay, so the only thing that we now need is again this piece of code where we can get back to our main class. Then we have here an object map, and I am thinking now most likely we want to have something like game properties, which we can also initialize lazily. And the initialization code for that one is simply this one. So here we have the val properties map is a new object map of type string. We pass that in here. I need to move that before the use stuff, and then we just call properties to game properties. That's it. And now we can have here the same stuff. Not yet, because most likely everything is private. Yes. Let's remove that. And now we can access it, which also means at that point in here, this by lazy gets called, everything gets initialized once. And that should be it, right? I think so. You lose the benefits of the data class like this, equality comparison, game properties, sound volume float. Yes, exactly. It does not need to be private. Looks a lot better. So I have one problem. Not sure if that will work out, but actually what we want to have here is we want to have game property sound volume and also game property music volume. I think that should still work most likely. But let's see. What I personally don't like a lot when you have too much properties here with some initialization block. So that could be maybe extracted to separate methods below. Then we have one-liners again. But that's then really the icing on the cake. And that's it. So what we need to pass the game properties to our loading screen. And the game properties also needs to be passed to our game screen because that screen then finally needs it in the end. And here we just have now game properties. Now it becomes really beautiful because here we just have this very short piece of code. Enable profiling and everything else can be removed. Ha! Good. Just pass the complete object. You could also initialize lazy into vars. Then you do not need the lazy vals. That's true. About giving the entire... first of all, I can remove this function now. Also the game property key, we don't need it anymore. Looks good. What I don't like, and I see that also unfortunately many times in real code out there with other colleagues. So if we would I think your idea is that simply pass in here the game properties. I personally don't like such things because you basically hide what is really needed. So this game property class has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties at the moment. At the end it could be 20. And when I test or want to write a test for the audio service and I see I need to pass in an object of type game property, I have no idea to see immediately what is really needed. So that those two things are the only important ones for the audio service. I would need to find that out. In worst case, if I pass an empty object, it even crashes. So I prefer to really tell the caller what is needed for a specific thing. So in this audio service, I really want to pass the sound and music volume. Yes, it's mocked, but we will also... I think that is what I wanted to do. I wanted to write a test for the audio service with this play music and stop music stuff, but we don't do that today anymore. But anyway, I still prefer that one here. In real-world examples, I saw methods where I need to put in they call it like usually these DTOs or TOs, so just some dummy objects. And I had there objects which had like hundreds of properties in it because they are reading many things from the database. And I need to call that method and I see, okay, it needs that specific object. And then I look into it. Whoa, 100 of these things, which ones are important, which ones are not. And sometimes I had the cases where really it's just one tiny little thing which is important for that function, like reading. I had an example where one property of that huge class was the language, if it's German, English, or whatever. And to call and use a specific function, the only thing internally somewhere was that they were reading this language property. Everything else of these 99 properties, they were not used at all. But simply, I couldn't see it. I just saw I need to pass that object and then I need to dig into the code. Okay, what is it doing with that object? And somewhere in the 5th or 6th level below, I saw, okay, here it's accessing this language stuff. So that's the only thing that I need to pass in. And in my opinion, that's then not very clean code. It's more declarative if you do it like that. So anyway, what did we do now? So in the end, we just, I think we want to have now a music volume of 50%, right? So to be honest, I have no idea if it's now less loud than before. So let's check here if we set the music volume to 50%. This is what we try to achieve at least. Yes. So we set this music volume to 50%, which for me is still actually quite loud. Don't know how it is in the stream, but let me change it down to 20%. Now it's better. Also works, but I would use the assignment style for the constructor, then x equals something. Well, what do you mean with that? Anyway, the music is now working great. We will also add still the jumping sound, but before we do that, we need to fix our test here. So we need a test for this game property stuff. So create new test, game properties test, yes. And it's not so difficult, I hope, because basically it's the test that we have written here, which is not the best way of defining a test, but it's some way. And no, I want the Kotlin test. Not even sure what is the difference between those, but we will use it. So, also not public. What am I doing? So test game properties. And let's have that as an example. And now we can reuse all of that. And the only thing that we are doing is then test map to game properties, which gives us a single variable, which is game properties. Yeah. And in here, that does not work because we are now working with real keys. So I also need to set here real stuff. I cannot use arbitrary keys because they are simply not parsed by this to game property stuff. But anyway, we can have it like this at least. So that would be a sound volume of 0.7. That would be a floating check. Then music volume of 0. Then debug physics to true. Then enable default or enable profiling to false. What else? I mean, we could keep actually the tests because we still have this extension function, but let's not do it. I'm getting too tired now. So let's keep it like that. So we have this test map. We pass it or we convert it to game properties. And now the only thing that we need to do is we had all of that. We want to have here a static import. Yes. And now we are calling here .sound volume, and sound volume should be 0.7. And it's complaining type inference field, the value of type should be mentioned in input type. What? Ah, okay. Then we have music volume, which should be 0. Then we had debug physics, which should be true. Then we had enable profiling, which is false. And we had log level, which should be free. And hopefully this test is passing. What's the problem? Oh, we have 2 test imports. Okay, let's see. Is that test still working? It is. Okay, not done perfectly. So what we could do, so first of all, this method here could still be tested separately in the, I think in the way that we actually did it before. But yeah, I think you saw how to do it, what can be done. This class here, we no longer need it. We can remove it. The important part is that this game properties class is working, which is good. So you mentioned before audio service sound volume equals game property sound volume in the audio service lazy. Ah, okay. You mean in here? Yes, that could be done. Okay, also the last thing is now our jump sound effect. So music is working, at least the playing. We did not test yet music swapping and things like that, but it should also work. We will come to that maybe later on. More important is now jumping. So when exactly do we jump and how do we know if we jump? We had a jump. We have a jump component, but no jump system. Really? Ah, jump physics system, we called it like that. Okay, basically here, is it here? We have the gravity, yes, and then we set the linear velocity. So here we know that we want to do a jump, which means that that tiny little system here now will get an audio service. I think in one of the tutorials I did it a little bit differently. And the way I solved it there is that I basically fired an event for example, an entity jump event where I passed the entity and then the audio service was reacting to that jump event and was then playing the sound effect. Also, I think it calculated, for example, the entity of type and is there a jump sound effect for that specific entity, then play it. That's also one way to solve it, but not sure if we need it or what is better. I tend actually to the event-driven system, but for today it's good enough if we just play here sound as a jump. And that should already be the trick, because I think the audio service is already an injectable of our game world. Yes, it is. So when we now start the game, we can walk, and when we jump, okay, the sound is a little bit delayed. but that's not the... I don't know if you can even hear that. Maybe it's too silent for you. But we are definitely playing the sound effect, which is great. And this delay that it's immediately not played when we are jumping, that's a problem of the sound file itself. Because... let me open it. We don't see it here. Let me... I don't know, where can we see that? Maybe in this video editor again. So that this jumping sound, the effect itself is just played after, I don't know, half a second or something like that. And that's the reason. So it's not a problem with our code. It's a problem with the sound file itself. Yeah, I think you still might not see it immediately, but I guess these red lines, these are the wave that I was trying to explain before with the sound effect. And it seems like, so here, it just starts with something and the real sound is most likely played somewhere over there. So there's a minor delay. It's nothing with our code. It's really just an issue with the sound file itself. Anyway, for today, I think that's it. So we have the background music. We have the effect when we are jumping. It's not the final music file and sound effect that we will use. But the important part is the logic that we have implemented. And we also refactored these game properties now. Which means everything that I wanted to do today is done. Let's quickly check the code. We modified a lot of files. If there's something in there which is some debug line. So here, what is the problem? This method could be private. Yes, for now it could be private. That's true. The play music sound, we just use it internally below here. But in the future, this play music sound might also be called somewhere else in the system. So we keep that a public method. Then that one got deleted. Then we have the sound volume and music volume in the game property files. We have now a new file for the game properties where I want to thank Spelunky again for the idea. So I had something similar in mind, but this data class setup with the extension function of the object map, that was a nice hint. Then we had the test file for the game properties. Then we had the screen. There, I think, no, not in the screen. The screen is totally fine. That we added these if conditions or updated it. Then jump file. Then the jump physics system, which uses now the audio service to play this jump sound. Okay. Then we have the loading screen. Okay, there were some updates. Here, I want to quickly refactor that. I really don't like that when at the beginning I quickly and easily want to see the properties and I don't want to get overwhelmed with logic stuff in the properties of a class. I don't like that a lot. So we try to optimize that also in a moment. And this is just a TMX file and everything else. Okay, so last thing. I think that should be possible. So that stuff here, can I extract it to, okay, not this one here, but that one here. Can I extract it to a method, which I call load game properties. No idea why that one. What did it do? looks like it did something crazy. You should be a method that returns a game property. That's everything that you need to do. Okay. No, property that must have a get value method. None of the following functions are suitable. What is lazy taking? It's an initializer, which is a method that returns something. A method that returns something. Okay. So is it like this? I think so. It might be like this. Okay, so there we have the load game properties. And what else? The audio service, I think that one is okay. Is it? Yeah, it's just a one line. It's a little bit long. I do agree. So if we would bring it within one line, it goes here overboard. Even if we would remove that one here, it's too long. We could rename game properties in here, maybe game props. Then it still will do the break. Maybe that one could be shortened a little bit instead of sound volume. But that just makes sense that it's called sound volumes. Never mind. Let's go back to I live with it. That one gets here split up into several lines. Yeah. Let's keep it like that. Good. And the same issue is actually in the game screen, because there we have our physics world, which is fine, but that one here, so this configure world, that one is also way too long and a little bit confusing if everything is up there. So let's call that create entity world, for example. That's this private function here. And let's put that below show and hide. Maybe at the end here. Yeah, maybe at the end. And that one also then makes it a little bit easier at the beginning of this game screen, so we directly see all the properties that we have instead of getting overwhelmed with all this configuration stuff of the entity world. Okay. I think that's really it. So let's now commit that. So what we did is add audio support and refactor game properties. Okay, perfect. So I like it. What else do we need to do? So day 4 is now officially completed. On the next stream day, I wanted to do... this one I wanted to do today, but yeah, it's too late now. I won't do it. And also I don't want to think about it too much. So there we will really optimize the player sprite a little bit. And I don't mean player sprite. I actually mean the collision stuff here. So these collision shapes here, I want to pass here some properties to our engine that we can read the friction value, that we can set the friction value correctly, that on the, for example, when we are jumping against the wall, that we are not sticking to it. On the floor, we will have a different shape, most likely. I think the circle might be a little bit problematic and makes us bounce a little bit because of the inaccuracy of box 2D. I think when we are moving between those two chain shapes here, sometimes we saw that actually in debugging we are moving a little bit up and down. So we have a little hop. It's not big, but it's there. And that might be better if we use a box or again a chain shape below instead of the circle and use a very high friction. Then that also might be a little bit better. But anyway, these optimizations will be part of the next stream. And we will start with a user interface where I want to try out for the first time this, I think it's called Scene Manager. Scene Manager, LibGDX, GitHub. No, not Screen Manager. That is also a cool one. How is it called? Let me find that out. I think I start it. Where do I see the repositories that I start? How do I see the repositories that I start? I know that on my phone I can easily get them. I think. Show more? No. Here? No. Huh? How do I find out the repositories that I gave a star? Pull request, issues, create new. Your profile, your repositories. Your stars. Ah, here in the menu. Okay. Which ones did I give a star? Let's see. I start my own project. What the fuck? That was a mistake. I never star myself. Then Kotlin JetBrains Screen Manager, which, no, this is this transition stuff. Post-processing visual effects, no. Those are also cool, but not the one that I'm... Is it this one? GDX skins? No. Maybe I didn't give it a star yet. Damn it, but how was that then called? I remember there was a LibGDX. Was it Scene Manager? Maybe I found it from that one. So Screen Manager is not it. That would be, but by the way, something cool, but I never used it. As you've seen, we use those different screens like a loading screen, game screen, and so on. And this implementation here, as you see it in the video, allows for transitions between the different screens. And from what I know, it's quite simple to use. So you have this push screen and you push the transition to it, and then it just does this shader magic most likely in the background to get cool transitions like that. But that's not the one that I'm looking for. I'm looking for Skin Composer. Is it that one? So use Skin Composer to create skins. Live preview of all widgets, specify tinted, blah, 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 include free type support, 9-patch, integrated support for 10-patch. What is a 10-patch? Include something, implement your own classes, create basic scene 2D layouts with Scene Composer. Ah, that's how it was called. Yeah, I think this is the one that we want to try out. Because normally what I always do is that, I get the assets, of course, and then programmatically I create the skin and all the different widgets and so on, and that's quite tedious and annoying and also not very, very easy to adapt and everything. So I saw that, let me save this link here, that with this little library here, from what I understand at least, that there is the Scene Composer in it. And you can then, okay, this graphic does not help us at all. But from what, I think I saw it also in a YouTube video, maybe. I checked that in a moment. But anyway, you have then an editor in that little application here where you load your skin, so all the different graphics for the UI. Then like drag and drop, you can drag in the button, text, whatever, can play around with it, how it looks, so stretch it and so all of that, that you see how it behaves with the different screen resolutions and so on. And when you create then a little scene, like for example a menu, then it gives you the Java code, if I'm not mistaken, of that scene, that you don't need to write it yourself. So that would be something quite useful. And I never used that before, but I want to try that out in the project because that might save some time and might be a cool library. I'm just wondering, where did I see that? Is that guy called Ralus, something? He's also making some LibGDX videos, which are actually really useful. And I think he makes really cool videos as well. I post a link, not sure if you will ever see it, but it's Releus. And I think it must be one of his recent videos. Maybe? Not sure. I will look that up. And yeah, anyway, we will use that then to create the user interface, if that really works, with some player hit points. And what else did we have? Current map info when changing maps, like map intro, fade in, fade out. Okay. So here the idea was, when we are then in the game and we have maybe different maps and the player is leaving a specific map, then a map can have a name like this one. Currently has test TMX, but I think we can also give it maybe another name. I don't know. And I want to have then this name like fading in at the top center and then fading out, that the player knows in which map he's currently located. Good, but that's it for today. I thank you all for watching and for your help again. And the next stream most likely will be on Thursday. Tomorrow will be no stream for sure. I don't have time. But on Thursday there should be a stream, where I'm not sure if we can cover everything, because especially user interface is always super time consuming for me. So most likely day 5 will also be 2 days, so Thursday and Friday. But we will at least start with that one. Okay, then wish you a nice evening and bye-bye.